can move that.
We just need like 2 more chairs.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I know how it goes.
Well, I have more chairs.
Yeah, go for it.
Case that has this long of a sentence this week. It's just true. I'm not saying that's right, but that's true. They will, I would imagine they might.
Yeah, probably that.
That way you don't have to be loud.
Yeah.
Is today the 8th? It sure is.
I love your avatar. When I was in college, those were like black and white.
My college was also okay. Thank you.
What's the address?
Amazing.
Look, that's horrible. I'm sorry. Look, I'm all here and don't even know where I'm at. That's okay. It's not bad. We all living here.
FC ain't come to kidnap nobody. You don't even know where you left with.
Okay. I'm a little more cautious than that.
I got Apple behind me. Hopefully you'll find it.
Okay. How y'all doing?
Can I get you guys to sign in? Thank you. There you go. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please sign in and get your wristband if you want. Because if you don't have a wristband, can't get no food.
It's upstairs programs that way. No campaign. They read I'm not signing right now, but I think it's still readable.
Okay.
Program we call it campaign.
Thank you. That way or that way?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Everyone's paid for their stuff except for Chris. Hi, there she is. How are you? Good, good.
posted on that new city center.
Spots after to go and support the community.
Oh, they already got cut. Yeah.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us here today. I just wanted to do a couple of quick announcements before we get started with the content of our program. Just so everyone knows, we do have food upstairs for free if you stop at that check-in table to get your little green wristband. That will get you some food. You can go upstairs and get food at any point throughout the program. The food will be served upstairs. There's a little sign guiding you up the stairs. There's a big room with tables, and there should be a screen in there, so if you're eating and still want to follow along with what's going on, you should still be able to do that. Also throughout the program, you'll see around the perimeter of the room are different tables with different organizations that are here to support the work that you can get plugged into and learn a bit more about. So we do encourage you to, throughout the program, stop and learn at the tables, connect with the folks in the work that's happening. And then bathrooms, if you need a bathroom, if you walk out of these doors and go to the left, there'll be bathrooms, all right? See, so if you're hungry, you can go get food right now. You don't need to wait for permission at any other point. You get blanket permission until 4:30 to get food. All right.
Stairs in here or elevators on the left?
All right, so as I said, we'll do the program as people are able to go get their food, so don't feel bad about getting up while I'm speaking or while anyone's speaking. If you're hungry, follow the impulse up the stairs to get food, okay? All right, so you're like, who is this person on the mic? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm an organizer with the Minnesota Anti-War Committee, and I'm more than happy to be here to MC for the second annual Day of Empathy, hosted, yeah. I feel like I'm too short to use these things. I'm just like using a standing mic. So this event is hosted by the Wrongfully Incarcerated and Oversentenced Families Council of Minnesota, as well in partnership with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice. Both these organizations are working hard for our incarcerated family members throughout Minnesota, as well as for police accountability, and those things go hand in hand. So that's why these are all here today. As you walked in, you saw the headbands, or the hand wristbands, sorry. You also should have a little program. This will help you walk through the day. Some of the things have changed because of our carceral system, we are not able to 100% schedule things in terms of calls with our incarcerated family members, so we have to shift some things around. But you can follow along with us. We do have a printout for you. But yeah, I want to start with what is the Day of Empathy, right? It's the second annual one. You're like, what are we doing here? The Day of Empathy began last year as a community response to silence, harm, and systemic neglect. The first Day of Empathy created space for families directly impacted by incarceration, police violence, and state harm to be seen, heard, and supported. It centered love, truth, and collective care, bringing together impacted families, previously incarcerated people, organizers, and allies to share stories, build connections, and demand accountability. So we're doing it again this year because, as we know, the harm did not stop, and neither did we. The Day of Empathy is an act of resistance and remembrance. It exists to humanize those our systems try to erase, to build solidarity across movements, and to remind our communities that empathy is not passive, it is action. We return each year to hold space, apply pressure, and affirm that our people deserve dignity, justice, and freedom. And so we hold empathy for the victims and families who have lost loved ones or whose lives have been permanently changed by violence of the system, acknowledging that pain matters, lives are lost, people are harmed. Grief is real and deserves respect, but exploiting that pain to justify wrongful convictions or extreme sentences does not honor victims. It multiplies harm and creates more broken families. And so that's why we're here today, to learn more, to listen, hold space for folks who are impacted by the carceral system. And not only to hold that space, but also challenge ourselves to do more. How do we plug in? How do we support? How do we find the ways to help the folks that deeply need our help? And to uplift the voices, rather than replace it with our own voices, uplift their voices. And so we're gonna hear directly from either incarcerated folks, or previously incarcerated folks, or their families, so we hear from themselves what they need and what they want from us as supporters. And so, I'm excited to work with the wrongfully incarcerated Overly Sentenced Families Council, along with Alyssa. So I'll bring her up here to tell a little bit more about the organization and what she needs, what we're doing, and what we're here for. Everyone give it up for Alyssa Washington.
Thank you guys for being here. You all look beautiful today. We are a family-led, community-based organization made up of families, loved ones, and people directly impacted by incarceration. We didn't choose this work chose us. We organize because our people have been taken from their homes, buried alive in cages, and silenced by systems that refuse to see their humanity. We fight for the wrongfully incarcerated. We fight for the over-sentenced. We fight for people who have already done their time and are still being punished anyway. But this work doesn't stop at the prison gates. Mass incarceration is tied to policing. Policing is tied to immigration enforcement. Immigration enforcement is tied to forced labor, family separation, and displacement. These are not separate struggles. They are the same system wearing different uniforms. Can y'all agree on that? Yeah. And that is why you may see me speaking truth to power across many platforms that center oppressed people. Because silence is not an option when people's lives and voices are being stolen while they are still alive. We believe incarcerated people are our neighbors, our parents, our children, our partners, and our elders. And we put that belief into action. We support our incarcerated community with commissary when families can't afford it. We help transport loved ones to prisons so families can maintain connection. We show up because survival should never be a privilege. We don't just advocate, we organize. We don't just ask for reform, we demand accountability. And we don't just fight for release, we fight for dignity, safety, and real freedom. So I want to thank community for showing up today. Your presence matters, and I invite you to join us, not just in witnessing this moment, but in organizing for change. Organizing for the people who are still alive, whose voices and lives have been stolen, but not erased. Listen closely, not just with your ears, but with your heart, because liberation requires all of us. And I also want to make sure we always acknowledge that in all of these cases, someone has lost their life, like they're not living anymore. We hold space for them. We are we have empathy for them. You know, we don't want this to continuously keep going on. We do acknowledge it, and I do hope that people, whoever's listening, wherever these videos will be shown, that these families do know that we realize that their families have been harmed as well. But that I don't feel like, and no one should feel like, when someone has done wrong, that they should be sentenced to life in prison for the rest of their lives. People do deserve second chances, even though these men, most of these men and women, they have been railroaded and the system was not working for them, they were definitely working against them. So let's keep that in mind as well. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Alyssa. And as Alyssa was saying, please plug in and show up for the work. If you have this little fact sheet program, as you should when you came and checked in, on the back side, there is a QR code on how to get involved and get plugged in with the wrongfully incarcerated Overly Sentenced Families Council. So if you're not plugged in, please plug in, send an email and say, hey, I want to help. We do need more people to show up and do the work and also to support our incarcerated family members. So there's active ways to do that. You can plug in, send an email. This is a donation because the work does cost money, as you said. Like all the things that we're doing, this is done by community, and so we need to help support the work that's going. So that QR code in the back will take you to social media, as well as Cash App, Venmo. You can send an email as well, so you can get plugged in, all right? Awesome. So then the next part of the program, we will have the presentation on the day of the piece. So the presentation on the history and impacts of the American carceral system, as well as a dive into some of the cases that we've been working on for Cornelius Jackson and Nico Redding. And this will be by Jay and Noah of the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Noah, and I'm an organizer with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice. I just real quick before Jay introduces himself, I think I can speak for both of us in saying that we were honored to work on this presentation. We were honored to be in conversation with Cornelius Jackson and Nico Redding and hold their stories. We're going to do our best to do justice to their stories and share their stories. Of course, they are the experts on their stories, and so hopefully we can hear from them too. But yeah, we are honored to be here with you all today, and thank you, Alyssa, for all your amazing work. I'll let Jay introduce himself.
Hi everyone, my name is Jay. I'm with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice. We are a branch of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, which is also expanding its work to address inequality in the prison system, as well as partner with organizations like Alyssa's to do the work to get us all free. Because not only are the people who are actually incarcerated affected by this, but their families and their communities are missing them as well. They are needed in those places. And so we want to make sure that we have a justice system that operates with equity and that, quite honestly, isn't racist. We're going to get going with the presentation. I'm sort of providing historical background into the history of incarceration in the United States, how that relates to slavery and wealth accumulation in this country, and there will be time for questions at the end if you have them. So let me see if it's gonna. So one of the things that I think is really critical to point out when we're talking about incarceration in the U.S. Is that we live in a country that has worked very hard to obscure this reality for the people that live here. The historical realities of white supremacist violence are not up for debate. And we live in a country that has not only never reckoned with its past of theft, racist exploitation, genocide, and terrorization of minorities, but it has sanitized and excused this history, which has allowed white supremacy to thrive in our country. We are seeing the consequences of treating oppression like a difference of opinion in real time today, particularly in how marginalized people are treated by police and the carceral system. We have a responsibility to not only address inequality in these systems, but to transform the balance of power between us and the systems that govern our lives. There have always been everyday people willing to risk their jobs, their freedom, and their safety to oppose injustice. And hopefully this presentation will teach people more about the history of resistance to oppression and what we can learn from generations of struggle for a more just world. So I wanted to give people a brief history of the U.S. prison system because I think that a lot of people don't understand how intimately connected U.S. prisons are to the legacy of slavery. As most people know, slavery was formally abolished in the United States when Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. And Congress would ratify the proclamation, which means codify it into law in the United States Constitution 2 years later via the 13th Amendment. And this effectively made slavery illegal, but it would be another 3 years before Black people gained citizenship. And therefore, they were not protected under the United States Constitution until the 14th Amendment was added. And while both these amendments were pivotal to U.S. history and the struggle for civil rights, they did not, in fact, abolish slavery. And one phrase in the 13th Amendment stands in the way of this abolition. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist in the United States. Another thing is that post-Civil War, Black regiments remained in the South to squash Confederate rebellions for several years after the Civil War ended. But eventually, the period of Reconstruction, which was meant to integrate Black people into American society, was wholly abandoned, not just by Southern white people, but Northern white people who no longer saw the economic benefits of advocating for Black people in the same way. And this led to an era of renewed backlash and repression in Black communities. Due to the establishment of sharecropping, which kept Black people in similar economic conditions as slaves, and the proliferation of Black codes that prevented Black people from participation in government and civic life, little had actually changed for most Black people after the abolition of slavery. Eric Foner, who's an American political historian, states the entire complex of labor regulations and criminal laws was enforced by a police apparatus and judicial system in which Blacks enjoyed virtually no voice whatsoever. Following the abolition of slavery, Black people took public office, built new towns and districts for newly freed slaves, and sought to carve out new economic pathways such as the Black Wall Street in Tulsa. But the wealthy beneficiaries of the slave trade not only went unpunished, many received reparations for property loss if they had remained loyal to the Union. And actually, before signing the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln signed a different document that was called the D.C. Emancipation Act, which gave slaveholders $300 per freed slave, which is roughly $9,000 to $10,000 per person in today's money. And according to documents in the National Archive, over the next 9 months after this was signed, the Board of Commissioners appointed to administer the act approved 930 such petitions, completely or in part from former owners for the freedom of 2,989 former slaves. So if you can think about multiplying that $10,000 figure by the number of slaves who were emancipated under this act, you can understand how the consolidation of capital really contributed to the development of the prison system moving forward. And this contributed to the social conditions that normalized racist apartheid in the US, because racist people were essentially rewarded and allowed to continue the social conditions of slavery while it was formally abolished. I think that it's important to understand incarceration as a form of slavery. Not only were the conditions essentially the same, but they were legally allowed to funnel people into this system based on completely arbitrary understandings of like criminality or what even should be legal at the time. And so we also can't talk about prisons without talking about policing and its foundations in the US. So the police are a direct descendant of the slave patrols. That's not like metaphorical. Literally the same people were employed to do that job after the slave patrols were allegedly abolished. And so they were responsible for capturing escaped slaves and forcibly returning them to plantations. Post-Reconstruction, these militias were formalized into modern police departments that enforced the Black Codes, which were a set of extremely restrictive laws aimed specifically at criminalizing and then imprisoning, killing, or otherwise subjugating Black people. Some of the crimes that you could get imprisoned for under the Black Codes included not having anywhere to live, walking around in a town that you didn't live in, violating anti-miscegenation laws, which were anti-race mixing laws, leaving exploitative labor contracts, which sharecropping was inherently exploitative, or disrespecting white people, or walking around at night. So it was incredibly easy to funnel people into these systems during this time. And by the 1900s, municipalities across the US were establishing these formal police departments. Often these departments were directly under the control of various political figures, such as city officials and even business owners, who used them to maintain political power and enforce social control over minorities. The Black Codes also restricted Black people's ability to buy and lease land, own property, and participate in local government. But they primarily criminalized Black people for moving through public space. And this gave law enforcement, like I said earlier, and civilian white people the pretext to harass Black people for perceived infractions and either enslave, jail, or kill them. And the Black Codes also punished Black people financially for non-compliance with white supremacy. For example, in South Carolina, Black people who had jobs other than farm laborers or servants were forced to pay an annual tax. How much do you think they were forced to pay? Does anybody want to just throw out a guess? What was that? It's 40% of their wages? Okay. More guess?
70%.
It's worse. Essentially, they were forced to pay an annual tax that would have ranged from $10 to $100, which oftentimes was all someone's wages. Today, that would have been nearly $2,000. So you have to work certain jobs that are legally allowed to not pay you for your labor, and then you're also criminalized if you try to find a different form of employment. So you can see the kind of double bind that people would have been in. There was also a practice called convict leasing, which we actually still use in the United States today, across industries like textiles, farming, and manufacturing. And this began in the period immediately following the Civil War. And convict leasing was essentially where jails or prisons would lease out Black prisoners specifically to do farm labor as a way of sort of publicly, the chain gangs that people were working in were a way of like publicly enforcing this idea that like this is the only kind of labor that Black people are supposed to do. Sorry, it's like awkward switching between all these screens. So this kind of brings us to the civil rights era. And obviously I'm trying to like smash like several hundred years of history into one presentation, so we're skipping some things. But a lot of people locate sort of the beginning of mass incarceration with the war on drugs. But I think what I'm trying to show here is that there's a clear through line to slavery itself, and then the war on drugs and the war on poverty that Lyndon B. Johnson also waged before the war on drugs were ways of making Black people, again, funneled into this system. There's a continuity here that I think is really important that people understand. As activists fought against racism in the civil rights era, white politicians in both parties demonized communities of color, especially Black communities, under the pretense of fighting rising crime. And in reality, this was a lie to quell the Black liberation movement and the anti-war movement. John Ehrlichman, Nixon's domestic policy chief, actually openly admitted to this in 1994 in an interview where he says, and I quote, which this is going to be really gross, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." So this was an intentional program to disenfranchise and subjugate Black people. It wasn't an accident. And I think that when we talk about incarceration as though, oh, it's just because the system isn't set up correctly, it's just that like people administrating these systems don't know what they're doing. No, they absolutely do. Numerous policies throughout American history have targeted communities of color, particularly places like the Black Belt, where the majority of Black people in the US live. And Lyndon B. Johnson's war on crime policies that I mentioned earlier led to harsher and longer sentences for convicts than were spurred by white people's social anxieties and prejudices around race and crime in the midst of the civil rights era. Nixon was ultimately the architect of the war on drugs, but it truly thrived under Reagan. In his 8 years as president, the incarcerated population rose from 390,000 in 1980 to 627,000 in 1988. And then you have the Crime Bill of 1994, which further exacerbated this crisis. And between 1985 and 1995 alone, the total prison population grew an average of 8% annually. And between 1990 and 1995, all states, with the exception of Maine, substantially increased their prison populations from 13% in South Carolina to as high as 130% in Texas. The federal system grew 53% larger during this 5-year period, and while Black Americans are vastly overrepresented in the prison population, the disparity widens for those serving lengthy sentences. And you can kind of see in this graph that I have on the screen just how dramatic the increase in incarceration rates were between 1950 and the 1970s. And this trend has largely continued with brief drops in 2020 due to the pandemic, but overall prison populations are increasing while crime goes down. So this is a graph of the current racial makeup of our prison population. And this is a statistic that I think people hear a lot, but I don't know fully appreciate how horrifying it is. That Black people make up 13% of the US population, but are nearly 40% of the prison population. A report from the Vera Institute states other groups of people with characteristics that put them in the minority of American society, such as their sexual orientation or gender identity, are also admitted to prison at disproportionate rates. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual men and women go to prison at 3 times the rate of their heterosexual counterparts. And when women are examined alone, that rate jumps to 8 to 10 times. Gender nonconforming men and women report spending time in jail or prison at rates double to quadruple the rates of the general population. So for Black and other minorities, if they have these other markers of marginalization, they're facing even longer sentences, they're facing even less equal conditions, and often are facing even more horrific abuse in prison. I think it's also important to point out that inhumane conditions in prison are the rule, not the exception. Roughly 15,000 incidents of sexual and physical abuse were reported in 2024 alone. So that's just 1 year across the total prison population in the US. And that's also factoring in all of the underreporting of sexual assault and abuse, usually by prison staff. Poor labor standards for staff, like having prison guards work 16-hour shifts, which breeds resentment for the prison population that they're guarding, also has been shown to increase the likelihood of abuse by staff. Detention centers have also been proven to violate basic standards for cleanliness and food safety, just like our regular prisons. Inmates on death row also face execution despite evidence exonerating them, such as the case of Marcellus Williams, who was executed even though there was DNA evidence exonerating him in his case. Prison conditions are notoriously inhumane around the world, but in the US in particular, we are known as having some of the worst prison conditions across the globe. Many rehabilitation and behavior modification techniques used in prison come from the wildly unethical and unscientific practices used in asylums and psychiatric settings in the early 1900s. Crumbling prison infrastructure leads to serious human rights and public safety issues like the contaminated water inmates in Stillwater prison were forced to bathe and drink in. Medical neglect is a feature of imprisonment, and inmates often die unimaginably torturous deaths. Cardell Sherrill, for example, died after being denied medical care for nearly 3 days in Beltrami County Jail in 2018. Much of the prison population faces serious mental health conditions, and they receive completely inadequate care that leads to increases in sentences and rights abuses inside. A report by the Equal Justice Initiative illustrates how solitary confinement, which is disproportionately used against mentally ill and otherwise marginalized prisoners, affects suicide rates in prison. More than 60,000 people, this is a quote from the report, more than 60,000 people in the US are held in solitary confinement. They're isolated in small cells for 23 hours a day, allowed out only for showers, brief exercise, or medical visits, and denied calls or visits from family members. Studies show that people held in long-term solitary confinement suffer from anxiety, paranoia, perceptual disturbances, and deep depression. Nationwide, suicides among people held in isolation account for almost 50% of all prison suicides, even though less than 8% of the prison population is in isolation. I think the other thing that is really critical for people to understand is like, in prison, the power imbalance between prisoners and the staff that govern their lives is huge. There's very little recourse for a prisoner if they are experiencing staff abuse or they're being sort of denied medical care by their caretakers. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation, but it's an incredibly common experience for people to be abused in prison and then have nothing that can really be done to hold the people that abuse them accountable. I think it's also critical to understand that research shows there have been so many studies done around the world about incarceration. And the research is absolutely crystal clear that mass incarceration does absolutely nothing to improve public safety at all. What it does do is make a lot of money for corporations because it's a for-profit system. As private prisons expand, so do detention centers. And what we're seeing around ICE right now, immigrants are detained by ICE, and they are the fastest growing prison population in the past decade. Immigrants are separated from their families, housed in overcrowded conditions, and horrifically abused with little to no mechanism of oversight. If that sounds familiar, it should. At least 75% of the current detention population has no criminal record, contradicting the DHS narrative that they only arrest hard criminals. Like private for-profit prisons, detention is expensive and has not proven to increase public safety in any measurable way. Across the US, crime has been in a steady decline since the 1990s, so why are prison populations continuing to rise? Well, as the EJP puts it, mass incarceration is an expensive way to achieve less public safety, but it's incredibly lucrative. It cost taxpayers almost $87 billion in 2015 for roughly the same level of public safety achieved in 1978 for $5.5 billion. Factoring in policing, court costs, and expenses paid by families to support incarcerated loved ones, mass incarceration costs state and federal governments and American families several billion each year. Does anybody want to guess how many billion each year we pay to house people in these inhumane conditions? What was that? 20 billion? Okay. Anybody else? 4 billion? 60 billion. It's $182 billion annually. $182 billion. That's money that could be going to schools, to healthcare, to infrastructure. We could have high-speed rail for like $5 billion of that. But we're instead sending it to these corporations to abuse our people in prison. Both detention centers and private prisons are paid set fees per detainee per night that net them billions in annual revenue. Core Civic, the largest private prison corporation in the US, runs 40 different prisons and detention facilities and is expanding. And Geo Group has provided an additional 6,000 plus beds for ICE detention just in 2025. Overwhelmingly, research indicates that expanding the social safety net, improving education, increasing wages and employment opportunities, and evidence-based drug treatment are the investments that actually lower crime. Incarceration is not only ineffective and inhumane, but it doesn't even work to address the social problems we're facing. It simply punishes everyday people while wealthy criminals and fraudulent corporations are allowed to evade consequences for much more serious crimes than drugs or robbery. And so now we're going to kind of do a deep dive into the two cases that TCC4J and the Wrongfully Incarcerated and Oversentenced Families Council are working on. We are trying to get Nico Redding and Cornelius Jackson released. because they have been wrongfully incarcerated and over sentenced, actually. So I'm going to pass it over to Noah.
Thank you, Jay, for grounding us in that history. And I'll preface this with saying I'm not a lawyer. I'm a community member. I'm an organizer. I don't think you have to be a lawyer to be able to point out injustices. Now that we're grounded in that history, let's talk about Nico Redding, a black elder, somebody who has been incarcerated since 1985. They were convicted for first-degree murder without the possibility of parole in 1987. In 1985, Nico was charged with first-degree murder for the killing of Jeffrey Larson during a robbery at a U-Haul store in North Minneapolis. And Nico, to this day, has maintained his innocence. And the evidence used against Nico was dependent on testimony from a paid informant, someone who was paid by the police and paid by the prosecution, as well as from two co-defendants who received lighter sentences in exchange for testifying against Nico. And all of the other defendants in the case have been released. The person who went into to case the U-Haul prior to the robbery later became a paid informant. As I previously said, she was a paid informant for the police and the prosecution, and it was her testimony and the testimony of the other defendants in exchange for lighter sentences that the prosecution relied on to convict Nico of first-degree murder. And Nico argues that the prosecutor did not adequately inform the jury that these three people were incentivized to testify against him. And on top of that, the forensic evidence from the crime scene suggests that Nico was not tall enough to have shot Jeffrey Larson. Go to the next slide. So, in 1987, someone who was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder, they had to serve a minimum of 17 years. And in 1987, you had the possibility of getting parole. There was a law change in 1989 that by the Minnesota State Legislature that changed the minimum sentence to 30 years for crimes committed after 1989. Redding served 15 months in a county jail prior to his conviction in 1987. So in 2002, he had already served those 17 years, that minimum. And when the Department of Corrections commissioner, when he was eligible for parole, the Department of Corrections commissioner denied him being paroled, citing this new law saying, that your minimum is 30 years. Correctly argued that he was convicted before 1989, before that new law was put in place. And this commissioner said that Nico needed to complete a certain number of classes, a certain number of curriculum, rehabilitative curriculum, corrective classes that are supposed to correct, one's behavior, etc. We know in the prison system, these classes, we know that the prison system does not actually rehabilitate people, right? Nevertheless, Nico did those classes, had the certificates for the classes that he was required to complete. In 1987, the classes that he completed the classes he was required to complete, from his conviction in 1987. In 1989, on top of them, changing the minimum sentence, they also added new classes that folks needed to complete. And so this commissioner argued that he needs to complete these new classes. Nico has since completed classes, gotten the certificates, But yet, they continue to move the goalpost to keep Nico incarcerated. You can go to the next slide. So again, Nico has always maintained his innocence, but still served his time. And Nico has served double the original sentence while also being subjected to cruel conditions in prison. Nico is in a wheelchair. He has numerous medical conditions. He has served double his time. He's been in there for over 40 years at this point. He was convicted of one life sentence. He should have been out in the early 2000s. He's still in there to this day. He's in his 70s. He's not a threat to the community. He is a vulnerable adult. He's somebody who, doesn't have loved ones outside anymore. A lot of his loved ones have passed on. He doesn't have a lot of people advocating for him. Thankfully, he has Cornelius Jackson who's advocating for him, and he's got Alyssa who's advocating for him. But we're really trying to turn the pressure up to try and get Nico out of prison because he deserves to be home. He deserves to be home. He deserves to be out. The original sentence he was supposed to serve, a minimum of 17 years. He's also a jailhouse lawyer. He's helped a lot of people get out of prison. We were in conversation with and with Nico, in preparation for this presentation. We had the privilege of, hearing their stories from them. That was one thing that Corn mentioned, was like, this Nico, or Brain as he's called on the inside, because, he's so smart. He has helped so many people, get out of prison because he knows the law. He is able to argue their cases and help give them pointers and things like that. Corn said that he's over 24 people get out of prison. And as Jay just got done talking about, we have a system rooted in white supremacy. We have a system, rooted in slavery, rooted in these white supremacist values. And we know the people who work in the prison system, are incredibly petty and retaliatory. They love to make examples out of people, and they will often retaliate against someone for advocating for themselves or advocating for others. Nico helping to get all those folks out of prison. He's taking money out of these corporations' pockets. It wouldn't be something that any of us would be surprised of, if the prison system was found to be, retaliating against Nico for his advocacy. Nico doesn't have, he doesn't have any family on the outside. Again, he's doesn't have a lot of people to advocate for him. So, we really want to make sure that we are sharing his story, and we want to turn the pressure up. And hopefully, we can hear from him today. Hopefully, he's able to call in and we can hear from him from himself. There's no other reason. There's no reason other than cruelty to keep Nico Redding in prison. You go to the next slide. We're gonna hear some audio actually, real quick.
Hey y'all, I'm Corn. Super thankful for y'all for showing up today for the second annual day of empathy. For the people who don't know me or my story, in 2007, at 19 turning 20, I was sentenced to die in prison. Before this, I had never been in any juvenile facility or had any criminal record. And if you were present for the presentation, then you noticed a lot of things about my case. One of the things I hope to take away from today is how the justice system is not about justice. It's not about the community being favored. It's not about bringing loved ones a peace of mind. it's really about enslaving black and brown and indigenous and poor white people. We know this to be true because of stories like Brian Hooper, wrongfully incarcerated for 27 years, or Marvin Haynes, wrongfully incarcerated for 20, or Jonathan Hudson, who had 16 within 33 years, or me at 19 sentenced to 9 in prison. While ones like Derek Chauvin, who in his 40s murdered George Floyd, or Kim Carter, who murdered Dante Wright, are able life sentences compared to ours, and of course the chance to go home and do it with their family. When asked what is justice, I always say justice is what you want for yourself or your loved one if they're in a situation where they can spend years or die in prison for something they may or may have not done. That's justice. I also want you to know that the same prosecutor in my case, where he was wrongfully incarcerated, the same prosecutor I had in my case, he was the same dirty tax, he was wrongfully incarcerated in my department, and he did mine. Kyron Williams, who was a known informant, who both testified at my real trial, also testified in my trial. The only difference in my case is their home, and that's why it's important for you all to show like that today. The death entity is not only to share stories like mine, but also to educate the community and to look at the The more information we're able to give the community, the angrier they are. I hope that like this encourages to get involved in the fight because that's the only way to hold these people accountable. Be a me, others like me, and make them feel good. Our leaders are coming with love, peace, and all love good. I'm playing, but let's make a promise to one another. Let's never let these people separate us again. By telling us my fight is your fight, or your fight is the person because that's the right fight. Because anytime a group is being oppressed, it's our fight, it's all our fight. Love. And Black History Month, I definitely want to leave with a quote from my favorite, People Proclamation. He said, usually when people are sad, they don't do anything. They just cry over their division. So when they get angry, they bring about change. I like that quote because I tell anybody, don't be sad, you don't cry, be angry. I'll leave it at that though.
Free corn! Free corn!
So we just heard a little bit of Cornelius Jackson share a little bit about his story, so we'll skip that first slide. Also, we have Antoinette calling in at 3:30. I'm gonna kind of speed up a little bit. But as Corn mentioned, his case was tried by the same prosecutor that tried, Marvin Haynes and Mayan Burrell cases. Two wrongfully convicted men. And Mayan, who was targeted by the police, when he got out and was illegally searched, and now is back in prison. So free Mayan Burrell. But Cornelius Jackson, he's been in there for over 20 years, and he was also convicted as a teenager. His co-defendant's case, his co-defendant's case were tried jointly together in one trial. And for those who've been through the system or who have family impacted by the system, you know that often before trial, the prosecutor will offer a plea deal in an attempt to try and get someone to plead guilty and avoid trial. The prosecutor will offer like a lighter sentence. And if you refuse the plea deal and you go through with trial and you end up losing, you get like the most severe consequences oftentimes. Corn wanted to take the plea deal. He wanted to take the plea deal at the time because he had a feeling that he couldn't beat this racist system and he didn't want to risk getting life without parole. Corn's co-defendant was 17 at the time, and his lawyer, Corn's co-defendant's lawyer convinced him, to go to trial because his lawyer didn't think that they would give a 17-year-old life without parole. Because their cases were tied jointly together, Corn went to trial. He wasn't able to, separately take a plea deal. And they lost. And Corn and his co-defendant both got life without parole. And that just speaks to the unfairness of the system, and again, you know, Corn really wanted us to talk about like how the tactics of the prosecutor, and this prosecutor, Mike Fernstall, you know, in an interview with Liz Collins, the head so-called journalist of the far-right pro-white supremacist rag of a news agency, Alpha News. You know, first of all, if you're taking an interview with that news agency, like, you know, that already says a lot about your politics. And, you know, people like to, you know, prosecutors, judges like to talk about how, you know, they're politically neutral. But we know that, you know, politics is in the courtroom. All these prosecutors have politics. These judges have politics. You know, people who are in the jury, you know, we all grow up in this racist system. We all grow up hearing these racist ideas. But Mike Fernstall, in this interview, reaffirmed his belief that Marvin Haynes and Mayan Burrell are guilty for the crimes they were wrongfully convicted for, even after they were released. And so I think that says a lot about this prosecutor. We can go to the next slide. The prosecutor went to great lengths to paint a picture of Corn as a gang member, even inviting the jury to view the case as, and I quote, he invited the jury to view the case as, quote, involving 3 black males in the hood in North Minneapolis. And like, what's the purpose of that statement? I think it's clear that the prosecutor was trying to appeal to the deeply held implicit biases and stereotypes that everyone grows up with in this racist society. You know, the prosecutor seeking to persuade the jury to convict Corn's character, you know, before the trial was even over. You know, he was trying to get them to buy this idea that Corn is a gang member, even though Corn to this day is maintaining that he was never in a gang. But you know, that's what you do. That's what this prosecutor was trying to argue, that that's what you do if you're black growing up in the hood on the north side. You know, yeah, shame on that. And you know, I put this up there from Justice Dietzen in regard to Corn's case, because you know, the justice says that the evidence of Corn's guilt is overwhelming. But it's important to name that all eyewitness testimony from the day of the shooting, all eyewitness testimony said that they didn't see the faces of the people. They didn't know the names of the people. But then when the trial happened, you know, all the eyewitnesses were saying, oh yeah, it was Cornelius Jackson. Oh yeah, it was his co-defendant. So testimony changed. And the only thing that was clear from these eyewitnesses was that, you know, people who did the shooting was wearing a red hat. So I'll pass it on to, I'm gonna stop there for a moment because I think we have Antoinette on the phone.
And as I said when we set the space, because our incarcerated family members and community members are under deep control by the state itself, we do have to kind of move a little bit fluidly in terms of when we're able to call in and stuff like that. So we do have one of our first call-ins. This is Antoinette Johnson. And so she'll be, I'll hold a mic, or maybe I'll turn this mic on, so that folks can hear her because she's calling in right now to talk about her story. And we'll have some other folks calling in as well throughout the day. I also want to give a reminder that food is upstairs. If you're hungry, you can walk and get food at any point during the program.
These are Antoinette's children as well.
Hello? Okay, you want to speak there? Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, they listening.
Thank you guys for coming and supporting and thank you for all of my family and friends. Sorry, I'm just a little bit under the weather, going through
Antoinette.
Okay, Antoinette, we love you. I'm just gonna read her flyer that I created for her. My name's Sierra Leone. I'm a really good friend of Antoinette. We've been friends for over 20 years. It says here, my name is Antoinette Johnson. I'm a mother of 4 who was wrongfully convicted of first-degree premeditated murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for a crime I did not commit. For the past 10 years, I've been fighting to prove that I should not spend the rest of my life in prison for something I did not do. A life without parole sentence means I was condemned to die in prison without the opportunity for release, rehabilitation, or review, despite serious questions surrounding my conviction. Since my incarceration, laws have been changed that directly impact cases like mine. Laws recognizing wrongful convictions, excessive sentencing, and the need for post-conviction review. Yet no meaningful action has been taken on my case. Time and time again, my case has been overlooked, delayed, and allowed to slip through the cracks, despite the urgency and the irreversible harm caused by continued incarceration. I'm asking the community, advocates, and those in position of power to please help move and act not only on my case, but on the many others like mine that remain buried in a system resistant to correction and accountability. Justice delayed is justice denied, and I'm asking once again not to be forgotten. Free Antoinette. Free Antoinette.
I asked how can folks get in contact with the folks who are doing the support work for Antoinette. There's a Facebook page, so if you want to look up her case, look up how to plug in and support the work. Again, we're here to listen to the stories, have empathy, but also where can we support our folks, right? So, you know, take those stories, but also take that with you into action, all right? I know we have the last few slides of the presentation, and then our next call-in will be Corn, but whenever that call happens, I'll just interrupt Noah again.
Thank you. Okay, so the judge said that there was overwhelming evidence of Jackson's guilt of first-degree premeditated murder. And the judge cited, including eyewitness testimony from Mac Lynch and Pettis, 2 people who, on the day, when interviewed, said that they did not see the faces of the people who did the shooting, and they did not know the names of the people who did the shooting. All that they saw was that they were wearing hats, and they had their faces covered. Another eyewitness said the same thing. They did not see the faces of the people who did the shooting. They just saw that they were wearing hats. When it came to the trial, those stories changed, and people started saying that they saw Cornelius Jackson. And also, this admission to others that, Jackson shot Lynch, so the prosecution offered lighter sentences to 2 people who were already incarcerated, serving federal time, in exchange for their testimony against Cornelius Jackson and his co-defendant. They offered lighter sentences. And so if you're serving time, you want to get out of prison. So of course you're going to take that, I'm sure there's a lot of folks out here who would, fabricate a story, or say, yeah, you want me to say he was there, or yeah, you want me to say he told me that, you want me to provide evidence. I'll happily do that. You know, I think it's really questionable. We have to question the credibility of people. You know, when they're incentivized to testify against somebody, and I don't see that as overwhelming evidence. That's hearsay coming from the word of someone who was offered a deal to lessen their sentence. So the evidence of Corn's guilt is not overwhelming, and the evidence that Corn was convicted was weak. The evidence that Corn was convicted on was weak, but was strong. But what was strong was the ability for this prosecutor to sway the opinions of jurors who were already primed to convict a black teenager from North Minneapolis and lock away without the possibility of parole. So we have some calls to action. Let me go to the next slide. So help us apply pressure. Join our demands for prosecutor-initiated sentence adjustments for both Corn and Nico's cases. Their applications are sitting on Mary Moriarty's desk. We just need Mary Moriarty to review their cases. So, you know, we're asking people to, you know, call into the offices of Mary Moriarty, Paul Schnell and Tim Walls, demanding immediate action and review on their cases. You know, support, you know, our initiative for community control of the police. You know, we are trying to get an all-elected civilian police accountability commission in Minneapolis. We are trying to hold police accountable, so you know we can, because we need to start getting at the root of these issues. And so you know, when people have their needs met, you know, people are less likely to go out and commit crimes. And when police are being held accountable, police are less likely to you know, wrongfully incarcerate, wrongfully arrest, illegally arrest people. If there's like a toothy, you know, governing body with sweeping powers that can hold police accountable for their racism and for their, you know, vicious assaults on the community, you know, we'll see less of it. Is Corn on the phone?
All right, that brings us right to our next call-in. We actually have 3 folks calling in. So Cornelius Jackson, Demetrius Dobbins, and John Del Berry will all be on this next call. But also a reminder, if you're hungry, food is upstairs. You're free to move as you will. And there's like a, we'll do that.
Go ahead, Juan.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, little Corn? You alright? Hey, I know y'all heard a lot about me today as far as what was wrong with my case. But I also want y'all to know what I've been doing since my incarceration, though, right? I didn't allow myself to just be storage or be late. I use my time not just on a better game, but on a good game. You hear me, listen? And you know, right now in Incarcerated since September 7, 2022, and I've since 13 years. I'm currently in a Fairmont Correctional Facility. I've been through the Minnesota Federal Office with no avail due to the lack of assistance from our federal lawyer. And my petition for review from Minnesota court was denied in March 2024. I only had until June this year to file a post-conviction relief petition before the statute of limitations of time bar. So I'll briefly explain how this came to fruition. Kid who I love is my home, through a fair relationship with his mother, sexually molested his baby sister, and got caught by his mother a week after Mother's Day 2018. I believe through embarrassment and an attempt to deflect, he later implemented my name, claiming he molested her. I molested him in 2013 when he was around 67. And I never committed this type of crime. It is not who I am, and I'm ready to discuss the rest of it. I have children, grandchildren, countless family and friends who will tell you in a heartbeat that I'm not this type of person. And in fact, I'm the complete opposite of the protector thereof against any act against children. From the beginning, I want to declare my name because I'm this. And with that said, I'm willing to cooperate with the CPS worker who contacted me first. I'm willingly cooperated with Minneapolis police officers a couple days later on the phone. Then in person, the later the same day at the Minneapolis City Hall. I was not charged that day and was free to go. Months later, I was informed I was charged and missed a court date that I was unaware of. So to clear my name again, I willingly contacted the courts and was advised to turn myself in, and I did just that the very next day. The freedom fighter came to bail me out. I refused to take notice from probation and minimal local jail time several times because I wanted my day in court. I put my trust in a system that's supposed to protect me from false accusations by way of constitutional jurisprudence to face my accusers. And the system failed me by acting a rape shield statute that bars evidence of the previous sexual conduct of the accuser and claiming it was constitutionally necessary when it was not, when in fact it is. I believe the state abused their discretion by exclusion of evidence using the rape shield as proper. The state had no evidence other than the accusation that I to prove that I had done this. The time of the accusation was immediately suspect because it came directly after he was caught molesting his sister when we was all together a week before that, before he got caught. They did everything possible to solidify a conviction out of me because my integrity would not allow me to submit to anything against my character and belief. I would not admit to something I had never done, and had the jury heard any of the misconduct leading up to this accusation, it would have rendered a different verdict. But I've been seeking all kinds of help because I cannot afford a lawyer, but I need because my life has been taken from me. I don't know any other way to prove my innocence other than standing on my truth that I did not commit this heinous crime. But I have not given up hope. I have, however, taken this time to reinvent myself mentally because I'm determined to see this through me. And because my determination is the engine that keeps me moving in the direction of my objectives. I earned an associate's degree in the liberal arts school at Minneapolis College with honors and currently a So while the actual federal is free to commit more crimes in the same nation. So where's the fairness in that? So why the end with this? Sound conviction is not the same as telling the truth. The state convinced the jurors absent critical information and the truth lies between me and the fabricator, and only I, John Bean Berry, spoke the truth. I want to thank my friends and family for going home for me. I love y'all to death, man. I want to thank this my petition, and I leave in the way I came. Beats, free Demetrius Dollars, AK-7, free Cornelius Jackson, AK Corn, and free Beats.
Right, Demetrius Dobbins, he's gonna call right back, so he'll have his time to speak as well.
Alyssa, do you want me to play the pre-recorded person right now? Okay.
Let me get his.
Christopher Batola's family, they are in their house scared from what ICE is doing to our country. His family's from Africa.
Hello, everybody. First, I would like to thank Alyssa and everybody who helped put the Day of Empathy together. I also want to thank everybody in attendance for your time. My name is Chris Batua, and I'm currently incarcerated in Oak Park State Prison. In April of 2009, I was no more than present at the scene of a murder. I did not plan nor intend to aid this murder in any way. Most importantly, I did not shoot and kill the victim in my case. Yes, I did see the scene. No, I did not call the police, and I did go on a run for 6 weeks, not knowing what else to do. But I did not know this shooting would happen. After I did not cooperate with the homicide detective, I was charged with murder and later indicted on aiding and abetting first-degree murder charges by myself with no co-defendant. After a judge trial where the state only had circumstantial evidence, this evidence was twisted, manipulated, and used against me to make it look like I was more than just present at the murder. There was no solid evidence whatsoever to support I knew this would happen, no murder weapon linked to me, or any witnesses proving my intent in this crime. The state also relied on gang evidence to sway the jury when this was irrelevant due to the fact that me and the victim knew each other and had no problem at all. I was then acquitted of premeditated murder, but convicted of first-degree murder while committing a drive-by on the basis of the gang and second-degree murder on the basis of the gang. I was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after WU. It has now been 16.5 years since my incarceration. I was appealed, but have not yet had any success. In 2023, a new area of federal law has went in place. If this law was in effect when I went to trial, I wouldn't be in prison right now. But again, I am jumping through hurdles for my freedom. Harrison County recently used a version of events that did not coincide with the actual facts of my case to deny me relief. I have recently appealed that decision to the Supreme Court, and I am now waiting on the decision as we speak. To be clear, I am sitting in prison right now serving a life sentence for aiding and abetting first-degree murder, a crime I am innocent of and did not commit. Even though I am guilty of fleeing the city, evading police, and not cooperating with the police, none of those crimes carry a life sentence. I have not killed anybody, and I continue to pray for the family of the victim as I deeply feel for their loss. I have paid my debt to society, and I am fighting tirelessly for a second chance at life. I was grossly over-sentenced, and I am ready to come home and make a positive contribution in the outside world. As I wait for my blessing to come, I will continue to be a mentor here in prison and prepare myself for freedom. To anyone who may be listening and wants to help, I need my situation to be brought to the attention of Mary Moriarty. Feel free to contact me on Facebook under my first and last name. Again, to everybody here, thank you, and I greatly appreciate your time.
Well, my name is Cornelius Jackson. A lot of people know me as that on Big Beach. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for attending this event. You know, there's a lot of places in which I could be, I chose to be here, showing support to us, and being up to that. I want to definitely give special thanks to our sisters, Alyssa, you know, putting this all together and the team that supports you. We have a hard goal, you know, so thank you. Well, it's kind of hard not to get emotional doing this, because a lot of us been here for some decades. Me, myself, you know, and my story, you know, and in my case, I've been striving to be a poster boy for rehabilitation. And it's been a long journey, and, you know, I'm currently serving a life sentence with possibly parole. But I've been here for 23 years, and it's changed, and it's been a journey. In 2003, I wrongfully took the life of a young man. And although there were some environmental factors that contributed to the way I thought back then, today I come bearing with no excuses. It was wrong, I was wrong. And I lied about it for so long and shifted blame. I went to trial, I did a lot of things where I should have just took accountability way back then. But being here, and just recently I lost my son here, 16 years old, and then one of my nephews, another friend of theirs, was killed in a car crash. So we were routine killed in a car crash back in Minneapolis. And so in losing my son, you know, I had went to a dark place, in a place where I had to really reflect on what was going on in my life. And I always attributed to my son death to my sins and for the things that I did. And being 16 years old, not being able to get a second chance at life, you know, and you know, that really hit me and affected me. So it made me change, it made me reevaluate things, and it made me put myself into the shoes of the victim family people too, because for them to lose their son, successfully the way it was, you know, I know how it came here, so I have a little bit more empathy for the situation that's going on. And in here, I've been trying to change. I've been here working on myself, trying to rehabilitate myself, and trying to turn the negative into a positive. And I got to give a lot of thanks to my father, to my parents, my mom, because they didn't give up on me. I think without having good parenting, you know what I'm saying, a lot of times, you know, things can go wrong for us. And so when our parents don't give up on us, and when people like y'all really don't give up on us, right, it means a really lot to a lot of us in here. A lot of us, when we get that wrong, we cry, you know, we hear things, you know. There's a lot of things, emotions that we go through when we process. And for y'all out there to be here and doing this for us, is you really don't understand how it is. And I want to kind of like break down a little bit about what I've been doing here to change myself, to work on myself, to better myself. I just recently got my AA degree, and I'll have my bachelor. I have my bachelor in May of this year, and I'm trying to get a law degree. So big shout out to the Nico Revolution.
That's right.
Love you, Bo.
We've been here trying to get that going. Part of my future plans is to get out and get on the front line. You know what I'm saying? We got to save our youth. My son and them, they was caught in a stolen car and they got their life taken away from me. So my heart is attached be out there talking to the youth, all this little stuff that they got going on with little stolen cars and all these little things. I want to get out there and try to hope to save somebody else's kid life. And I just want to thank y'all again, y'all. Thank you for listening. I want to keep it real short and brief. For those who know me, you know what I'm saying, reach out to me, you know what I'm saying, try to leave know with us so we can try to figure stuff out. But I'm also trying to get custody this year, so I'm putting in for that. And so I need all the support I can get. Thank y'all.
I also want to acknowledge the parents of these incarcerated men that's in this room now. They love y'all. We love y'all. Y'all have some amazing children, and we're going to see this through. I hope all of y'all really tap in and let's really get this going with each other. I don't know it all, but I'm here trying to figure it out and do it together.
Sorry, that was really loud. So the presentation that we did is done. I do want to just call out, you should really, if you haven't followed the Wrongfully Incarcerated and Over-Sentenced Families Council on Instagram and Facebook, you really should. We co-post like call-ins, actions, and different things that people can do to materially support people who are incarcerated. TC for J, Noah was talking a little bit about what we are working on, but we actually have a petition to change the Minneapolis city charter to give us democratic control over Minneapolis police, not because we're interested in working with pigs, but because when you have a completely unaccountable police force that is allowed to do whatever they want on your dime, that's not right. And if we actually had control over the police, we could stop them from doing some of these practices that lead to wrongful incarceration and false sentencing based off of fabricated evidence and things like that. So if you want more information, we have a table outside to learn how you can partner with us on that. And then we just wanted to, after this next person, if people have questions for us, we'll be up here to answer those. So
I want to introduce Ambe McKenzie, Pepe McKenzie's brother.
Nice to meet y'all. Thanks for stepping out and supporting our community and for inviting us. I'd like to speak for my brother, say peace family, peace community. First, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Today I'm standing here to speak in the name of Nwante Pepe McKenzie. Pepe is not just a number. He is not just a case, he is a father, a grandfather, and a man who has spent decades inside a system that was built to break people, but instead he rebuilt himself. Pepe has worked hard on his rehabilitation. He has earned an associate's degree, has 2 bachelor degrees, has a jurisprudence, has a master's degree, has 6 books written and 1 just released. Which he does parole, and a parole class right now is active. They were trying to get into a lot of the facilities, so when brothers are approaching their parole, there's a parole prepared readiness class. I'm just learning the language myself, but we do a lot of back and forth. So this readiness class, and got Brother Andre last month. I don't know if y'all brothers remember him. His first time he got denied, so it was some victim impact statements that didn't get across to the family. Then there was the victim, what do you call those people? The negotiators that go in between the family and the prisoner and the impact. So they knew the family was coming to beef with the man, and they allowed it all to happen. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is part of the detrimental part of the parole readiness classes. You got to be ready for that. You got to stand on your accountability, your forgiveness, everything right in there on the site. So that's kind of what we're doing in the class right now. We're also working with Project Sweetie Pie to bring an agricultural workforce solution to Stillwater. We want to reopen the farm there. We got B West empty, so we're looking to put greenhouse in there. so we can get seasonings out to the youth programs. We got one youth program now, 140 kids that we getting seasonings this March, and those will be going in the dirt. So we're trying to keep this cycle, when we call it the cycle of life. That's what Project Sweetie Pie Michael Change. The rights and passes will bring forward the rights and the passes. So passes to be the workforce development system to try to integrate some of what y'all see, like IWAP doing the bill to get prisoners free from slavery to paid wages. So what we're looking at is more of planting that seed. You can get all the wages you need, but if you don't have a skill set, like me, I'm a multi-jack, I got a lot of skill sets. So what I do is I teach skill sets, but if I can get a brother with a skill set before he comes outside, I planted a seed in him of unrecidived death. And if we can get his savings up out of that money that he gets per hour. So we took, and we looked at the law, and it always says when you go to jail, you got and or 20 years and or a certain amount of money. You never ever see nobody get fined. Everybody get the max football number. So what we did, we started looking at the law, saying, so what's up with the other side of that money? So can a person earn half of their time off? Can a person reinvest into the community? So we took $1 an hour, we're gonna cover daycare. $1 an hour, we're gonna cover child support. $1 an hour, we're gonna cover a lot of what the fraud just hit in the community. So now you got a system, and then court just got called for fraud too. But now you got a system that we're building with the proposals we're bringing to the legislation to secure the funding and make sure that a brother starts out with $20 an hour. 10 of those dollars are broke up. Some are put into municipal funds, bonds that'll help pay for the prison, so they're gonna pay for where they live at. They're not gonna be managed like Jesse Body, Paul Lindsay, or Dayton did. They cut the funding. They didn't buy the municipal bond. That's why Stillwater fell apart. That's why our city didn't get any more money after it got built. That's why St. Cloud's falling down. So what a lived experienced person is looking at and calculating the fraud with their educational level, he said, well, let us buy the policy, let us fund the jail, let us fund the guy that's gonna work for us. We're gonna build a workforce up in here with a workforce solution so all of us can be trained and look at this $850 million budget to repair Stillwater and work for it. We're gonna take $20 an hour, split it in half, which will get you 20 years, gets you there in 10 years. You got that 10-year payment off 10-year dollars. And in 5 years, you'll be back to 20. 5 after that, depending on your level of crime and your time, but it's a management system to give you an opportunity to walk out early, be with your family, build the family pods within the prison so people's family and their kids can come to the prison, reunite, get back to doing homework for a weekend, cooking a meal, having your family, giving them a hug overnight. But this is the earned living unit, so you got to earn that. Every step of the way, when you wake up, you're going to be busy. You're going to be in programming, you're going to be working, you're going to be doing different stuff till you go to sleep to earn your life back and repair the harm that you did to the community by reinvesting in the community and breaking some of this fraud down. And that's their goal, is to try to challenge everything we're going through. Now, me personally, on the right side of the passage, I'm looking more at the prosecution and the police department. So it's nothing new. I don't have to recreate a wheel to look for another way to look at it. The federal government found the police department at fault. Okay, so we stopped. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. So we stopped there. But I'm saying to further advance it, the investigators and the prosecutors also held that time with the police because they prosecuted those racially claimed cases. So when the police department got its consent decree, where we failed at is the prosecutor didn't get their consent decree because they also should have lost jurisdiction of prosecution. So let me tell you, if a police investigation would be wrong and you go to jail and you get 10 years, but they come to find that this officer's cases are not valid, not only is your case not valid, this whole row that got sentenced in his cases, they should be overturned and looked at. So what Mary Moriarty is doing in her position is, she's playing the role on us as a scapegoat for the community. I'm gonna be nice, I'm gonna let them out, I'm gonna play nice with them. but she's the scapegoat because she has no authority. So it's just like the police. When they lost their authority, the sheriff had the authority. The real authority of policing in any state is the sheriff. Any county is the sheriff, if you know the law. So also, the Minneapolis police prosecutor lost their authority. It should have went to the sheriff department. If you guys understand how law works. So they're playing in our face, and their cases are now null and void. And if you do your own study on the law and you look it up, you'll start seeing what I'm saying. Their cases are null and void, so you're being played with these reinitiating these cases when they're void. If you do that, you're giving up your rights because you're not looking at your own case for yourself. But peace. John J.
Next, we're going to invite the family of Carrie Evans to play a recording. While they come up to get set up, we do want to send a reminder. There's a lot of tacos still upstairs, so if you're feeling a second plate, please go for it. And the stream is upstairs, so if you still want to stay plugged in, obviously you can hear what we're saying upstairs as well. That's your blanket permission to get up to get food at any point that you feel hungry, okay? All right.
My name is David Anderson, my brother Harry Anderson, incarcerated for the murder of Sergeant Big back in 2005. This is what he got to say.
For the previous message.
Well, what he was trying to say, man, back in 2005 in May, my brother brought the victim of the murder of Sergeant Big. There's no physical evidence that the victim to this murder lived that they even have. The coroner just a couple last year was convicted or was found to be perjury evidence in cases, and they still haven't overturned my brother's case or even looked into it. So we just trying to get evidence and turn over the case. like I say, it's a shame that my word is not good enough to get me off, but it's good enough to convict everyone in here. And that's what we deal with as black and brown people every day, and what we have been dealing with. And, you know, injustice is just wrong. And we're just all here trying to get justice for everyone, including the victims. So I appreciate everyone being here today, and I'm sorry for all that you all go through. Peace and love, everyone.
We've got a couple more folks who will be coming up. So first we'll have Jonte Hudson joining us right on stage up here. All right, just to briefly, Jonte Hudson was sentenced to 40 years in prison, but was released after serving almost 21 years, and is currently on parole living in the community. Thank you for joining us.
I would like to first thank all y'all for coming out here. Like they said, my name is Jonte Hudson. And to be real, this is like a dream come true to me. I was sentenced to 479 months at the age of 16. Yeah, 2005. And I just was paroled Tuesday, December 27th.
That's right.
So I guess I just want to say, like, for everybody that fight for their loved ones, they need you. This is real. You know what I'm saying? I sat in the cell for many years, and all I had is fight for myself or reach out to individuals that was doing this work. What I really want to talk about more than my case is your vote. Your vote matters. While we talk about these cases and the things that change the outcome of these cases, your vote is what's going to happen. Your vote elects the person that sits in that seat to make those decisions. For many years, we as black people, we as a community, I grew up in South Minneapolis all my life. We didn't care about a vote. And that's what happens. Someone that cared about their, let's say their career, had the opportunity to just railroad a lot of people. So when you don't care about something, you leave somebody else the opportunity to do what they care about.
Say
and
that.
This is what happens.
Say that.
Seriously, I'm not up here really to bash anybody's career, but Amy Klobuchar was the lead prosecutor on my case. And at the end of the day, a lot of these cases are intertwined within the Hennepin County court system. Come on, man. Mary only can do as much as she can. She's going to lead. Our vote here today matters who take that spot to keep on the work that's going to happen, because it don't take a day. Unfortunately, I had to go through what I had to go through, and then I was paroled by the Department of Corrections Tuesday, and it's a blessing to be standing in front of you 5 years early. I'm a recipient of the 2023 bill that passed for juvenile, and I went through hell to get there, but I'm here. So I just want to stress and say, when it's come time to vote, don't lack, get out, because this is what really matters. Like, we can keep on meeting, and we can keep on talking, and we can keep on loving, but them things don't matter when it comes down to the person that sits in that seat. So I just want to encourage you, as a young black man, first time in 38 years, was able to vote this year, to get out and vote and stress yourself, because it matters for your loved ones.
Say that.
All right. And last but not least, I'll be inviting Coley Gates up here. Coley Gates was sentenced to 999 years in prison. Right? That's absolutely ridiculous. His sentence was commuted after spending about 25 years in prison. Thank you so much for joining us, Coley Gates.
I just want to add to one of my little
the brothers just said, when it comes to the vote, y'all do know that judges get voted for too, just if you didn't know that. And so make sure you go and check that ballot, and make sure you get the right people in this seats as well. When it comes to that 999 years they gave me, I'm gonna share my story a little bit different, right? I released everything I had in 2 books I wrote. And so I'm gonna share a couple of poems with you that talks about my life, talks about my situation, and talks about the current events, if y'all don't mind. So the first piece is called Uncommon Sense. They told me not to write this. They said, nah, Cody, ain't nobody gonna like this. It's like putting on a Black Panther suit while holding up a white fist. Or dressing up like Hitler and giving little Jewish babies a goodnight kiss. Better yet, it's like pulling up a black man for speeding and beating him with batons. It's like screaming at the top of your lungs, please don't resist. Oops, my fault. That last one really happened. We just found out in the last 5 years that beating them don't work no more, so now we just blasting. We turn off our body camera because it's too funny and we don't want them to see us laughing. But you know, old news is no news and the same news is no reviews. Did you just see LeBron James make that basket? But what about that abortion clinic? We pay for that out of our taxes? While a mother cries because her son was aborted at the age of 25, I guess that blue shield come with a Plan B pill that gives you the authority to abort lives. And if we could listen to the news tell us what we clearly see with our own eyes. And then they pass it to the jury, do the same thing every single time. Maybe I'm slow and crazy, just out of my mind. Or maybe, just maybe they'll get it right next time. Get it right, uncommon sense. So as they stated, I was sentenced to 999 years for aiding and abetting first-degree murder. By no means do I claim to be an angel before that time took place. But at the end of the day, justice was not served. I didn't kill anybody. They gave me that time because I wouldn't tell them the person that did the crime. Now, if that's law, if that's legal, if that's justice, you let me know. And so, this next piece is called Where I'm From. Matter of fact, I'm gonna scratch that. I'm gonna do the piece that matters for today. This next piece is called Armed and Dangerous. They say we armed and dangerous. They went from armed and chaining us to rope and hanging us. Now it's 2026, so they just cock and aiming us. Then when we stand for a cause, now they say they're afraid of us. Our blood built this America, but the benefits they refrain from us. And then we fall into the shadows like success wasn't made for us. They say we're not dangerous. Why? Because we got the mental capacity, the courage and audacity to get past the tragedy of 400 years as they broke down our families. They say we affect this planet like nuclear warheads in the hands of those who shouldn't have it. They say we're not dangerous. Armed with a mind that can shift mankind, dangerously creative, we come up with designs. Without our Harvard or Yale, we expand and excel, so they can get orders to shoot and just kill. Or mass incarcerate them so again we can enslave them. Yeah, but it's cool though. We got to sharpen our own tools though. Make up our own rules though. Stop killing off our own kind, because this was designed for master, the conquer, the divide. So tell me who you really ride for. Yeah, I did it, committed acts of treason against my people like I was a player's #1 history. They say ignorance is bliss, until by ignorance you can big. Find yourself in the ditch that you unknowingly helped dig. Nigga, you dig here while we stand there. Nigga, you kill him, so he goes here. Then we tell the world these niggas don't care. Repeat that 10,000 times. Look at this prison system we got here. See these red and blue flags, organizations, and nations expand. But if you really want to know the truth, we just took over the job they're playing. For fears, we kill our own kind, mind, body, spirit, soul, and mind. Our eyes are wide open, yet we stumble around like we blind. See, this is the time when rumors will die. Let's kill all deceptions and stop all these lies. And black is so strong like the sun, we survive. We shine like the moon in the darkness of night. What you say? I said, now is our time. The rumors will die. Let's kill all deceptions and stop all these lies. And black is so strong like the sun, we survive. We shine like the moon in the darkness of night. They say we're on the dangerous. Oh, look at our minds. Many are signs like diamonds from mountains in African mines. Blood on our hands is the reason we slide. Like the mighty rivers, we draw our own kind. When one starts to make it, we tell them they white. So we say at the bottom like angels in life. Let's get on time, let's start to rise. They say they are dangerous, and let's show them why. Oh, look at my mind. Like many of the signs, like diamonds from mountains in African mines. Blood on his hands, we usually shot. Like the mighty rivers, we draw our own kind. And said we are dangerous. young kid. I was in there already. By the time we got there, I had about 15 years in. Now, remember, he came in as a teenager for something that he didn't do. You know what I'm saying? They clearly know he didn't do it. So, if this is the way that the law, the legal system is going to continue to move, then that means we're going to have to move a different way, right? And like the young brother said, it do start with the vote, but it started before the vote. It started in our homes. For all of us who got kids, we got to start training our kids different. You know what I'm saying? We got nieces, nephews, and cousins in these streets. We got to start grabbing them because we giving them ammo to shoot us with. And so then our next step, when we go home and we sit at the tables, we need to sit at these tables and tell our babies, listen, it's another way, and we got to make another way. And it's not so, you can't keep doing the same, do as I say and not as I do. So for us parents, you got to do better. We got to do better. Because they ain't going to change, they ain't going to change it on their end. If we wait on them, we're going to be waiting forever. So I'm saying for everybody in here, I know you know somebody who's in the streets. I know you probably gave up on them. Put the bug in their ear anyway. Because the seed gonna grow at the right time when it's meant to grow. But if you don't plant the seed, it ain't gonna grow. So from this point on, let's be seed planters and waters for those we say we love. And at the end of the day, the world is our community, so ain't nobody a stranger. We all neighbors. That's right. And let's move like that. That's right.
Let's give another round of applause to everyone who shared their story today and their family. Now, that was the last of our testimonies. But that's not the last of what we're going to do for our families and our incarcerated community members, right? Right. Yeah, we heard all the names. You have them written down in that little half sheet that you can look up their cases, find the Facebooks, find where you can advocate, find where you can plug in, scan the QR code to support the work of the wrongfully incarcerated and overly sentenced families council. Your next steps are right in your hands, right? So we're going to do them together, and I'll close us out with saying that, you know, as we've already heard today, the incarcerated are not separate from us. They're our neighbors, our family members, and our community, and we have a responsibility to care for them, to organize real action for liberation, and to demand accountability from the powers that be. Safety does not come from cages, it comes from justice, transparency, and a community willing to stand up and hold these systems accountable. So on our way out, we're thinking about what ways we can do that to disrupt these systems. And I'm going to close it out. Yeah. Oh my God. And this shows like I should say something about Alyssa. There's a lot of things I can say about Alyssa. So Alyssa, hello. Wave to me. Hello. Alyssa Washington. Yeah. Keep it going. Keep it going. Alyssa is a fierce advocate and warrior, and she's been out here holding it down for who knows how long. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but she's doing it for a long time. She's doing it well, but we have to show up to support. It cannot be one person doing all the work to stand up for our community members. We have to support us. We have to make sure that we're okay while we're out here doing the hard work. So I encourage folks, plug in, check in, and support and love the ones who are doing the work for us. But also, when she put out an ask, show up. Because as members of the Anti-War Committee and been organizing for the last couple of years on the ground for Palestine for the last few years, and now we're out here for everything that's happening. Alyssa has showed up to every single thing she can physically make it to. Every single protesting now for causes from Buck Ice to everything else. Alyssa has been there to not only make the connection, but also show the actual literal support. So I'm challenging everyone in here, you've already done the part, as in showing up, right? Showing up continually, showing up to support the work, but also plugging in. So again, that QR code on the back page of the half sheet that you got when you walked in, if you didn't, they will still be there. Scan it. Figure out ways you can plug in. Stay connected to Instagram, to Facebook, and stuff like that, so you know when the next upcoming events are. Send an email to say, hey, how can I help? Can I table a shift for you so she's not doing it all by herself? Can I make a graphic for you? Because we're working on camera. She's not real good, she's not better. But we need some help. So if you got those kind of skills, plug in, let us know. We need you at the work, right? All right, the last thing we're gonna do before we close out is shout the names of all the folks that we need to free, right? So you got them on your little half sheet, right? So free Nico! Free Nico! Free Internet! Free Internet! Free corn! Free corn! Free Demetrius! Free Demetrius! Free John Dale! Free John Dale! Free Peppy! Free Peppy! Free Harry! Free Harry! Free Christopher! Free Christopher! Free Brian! Free Brian! And thanks to Coley Gates and John St. Hudson for being here in person with us today. There's so much food on the take, so take it. And also, you know, on your way, circle to the tables, drop by the Legal Revolution, drop by the CPAC table, drop by the Minneapolis Action Committee. There's tables out there. Plug in with the community, plug in with the organizations who spent their time here today. Thank you so much for sitting today with us. Y'all have a good evening.
Oh, I got that. Yeah, Jack all over, but I want to talk to Jack. It's good of you, sis. How you doing, guys?
Watch out! Y'all keep on the street.
All at the same time in a row, just like scoot out.
We got a lot of shit going on there.
Siri.